I will be starting to talk to you here shortly, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Almanza,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My name is Shelley, and I'm the judge's court reporter. I'm here with Enrique and with Kulo Crum, your attorney. Can you see your attorney on the screen, Mr. Almanza?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So we're going to get started shortly, okay, with your hearing.
Okay. Okay.
Judge, we're ready in here anytime you are.
Okay,
Aaron, there she is.
I told them to. Right, the court will call case number 5976, the state of Texas versus Liborio Almanza. Is the state ready?
Judge, I'm present. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't have a copy of Mr. Crum's motion to reinstate. I don't know if one has been filed yet or not.
Mr. Crum, is the defense ready to proceed?
Honor, we filed the motion. I guess we filed a motion requesting this hearing. I don't have a proposed motion to reinstate at this time, but I guess the court can hear the evidence and we can file it if we need to file the motion. I thought we requested this hearing, so I didn't know we'd have to file a motion to reinstate. I thought the hearing was scheduled.
Let's see, Ms. Anchondo, did you get sufficient notice of this hearing date?
I knew that the hearing was happening. I agreed to this date, but I assumed Mr. Crum was going to file a motion to reinstate. I'm not moving for anything, Judge. Mr. Crum is, so. I mean, I
Right.
guess this time I'll agree to proceed forward. In the future, I'd like the motion to reinstate. So I know what he's asking for.
All right, Mr. Crum, you may proceed.
Judge, we'd file such a motion after the hearing if that's agreeable, if I need to file one. And I'm ready to proceed, I guess, on trying to get him out on bond.
All right. You may proceed.
Okay, Judge, record, I guess, well, I guess it's up record already that Mr. Almanza is listening. So I'd like to have the court swear Enrique Almanza, who's a son of Liborio Almanza.
Mr. Enrique Almanza, would you please raise your right hand and be sworn? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
And put your hand down.
All right. And you're Enrique Almanza?
Yes, sir.
And Enrique, you can just watch the screen as you answer my questions. Are you aware that a motion was filed or that your dad was arrested because of something that happened on January the 11th in the evening at your home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you recall that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
What's the address of the house where you and your dad were?
222 Plum Avenue here in Dumas, Texas.
Do you own that house?
Yes, sir.
Are you buying it?
Yes, sir.
How long has your dad lived there?
It has been about roughly 4 or 5 months, maybe more.
And where do you work?
I work at Destination Port of Dumas, here in Dumas.
Now, calling your attention to that night, were you at work that day?
Yes, sir.
When did you get back to your address?
7:30.
Who was at your address when you got back home?
My girlfriend and my dad,
And what's your girlfriend's name?
Kiara Gallagher.
And how long have you known her?
I'm sorry.
It has been
What was the name? I'm sorry. I couldn't hear it.
Kiara Gallagher.
Kiara Gallagher?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And Enrique, she's here and is ready to testify today, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you came back to the house, what was your father's condition? What was happening?
He was sick. He was laying in bed, and then he also had his life vest on him, coughing up pretty bad with his congestion.
Okay. Do you know how long Tiara had been there?
She had been about 15 minutes before I arrived.
Now, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 1, which is Hall's cough drops. Do you know if your dad was taking those?
Yes.
Okay. And is this the first day you'd seen him at the house?
No.
Okay. How long had they been there?
That same day, that was the first time it was a brand new package.
A new package?
Mhm.
So you saw him that day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I want to offer Defense Exhibit 1, which is Hall's Defense System cough drops.
No objection.
They're admitted as defendant's exhibit number 1.
And I'm going to hand you Defense Exhibit number 2. And tell the court what that is?
This is cough syrup.
Okay, what's it called?
It is called Tussen CF Max.
Now, did you see that cough medicine there that day?
Yes, sir.
And had you seen it before?
No.
Okay. And do you know of your own knowledge that your dad was taking that?
Yes.
Okay. And so you picked it up and brought it here today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'd offer Defense Exhibit 2.
No objection, Judge.
It's admitted.
And we'd ask the court to take the time to read the contents on the back of that, as it's one of our exhibits, and I think it'll speak for itself as to what it contains. Let's see. Now, how long, strike it. Do you keep alcoholic beverage in your house, Enrique?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have any in your refrigerator?
No, sir.
Do you keep it anywhere in your cabinets?
No, sir.
Okay. Was your dad sick that night?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you been around people that smell of alcoholic beverage?
Yes, sir.
Did your dad smell of alcoholic beverage?
No, sir.
You understand what it is to be under oath today,
Yes, sir.
and you know that you shouldn't make anything up if it's not true.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So was your dad consuming alcoholic beverage that night?
No, sir.
You've seen him in the past in your lifetime consume alcoholic beverage, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
And would you notice right off if he was drinking?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that he was not supposed to be drinking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And have you seen him blow into the device that the state of Texas has given him to blow into when necessary?
Yes, sir.
Now, on that occasion that evening, did you see him have to blow into it?
Yes, sir.
How many times?
I saw him blow into it once.
Just once?
Yes, sir. He has complained about it.
Now, when did you leave the house approximately that night?
It was roughly about 8:30.
Did you ever come back that night?
Yes, sir.
What time?
Around 11:18,
When you got back, where was your dad?
in bed asleep.
How do you know he was asleep?
I can hear him snoring next to my room.
Now, are you aware of the device that he wears, kind of like something to revive his heart if it were to stop?
Yes, sir.
What would you call that?
I call it a life vest, but it's actually a mobile defibrillator.
Okay. Now, regarding that defibrillator, you know your dad was arrested a couple of nights ago at home.
Yes, sir.
Were you there?
No, sir.
Is there a part of that defibrillator thing that is still at your house that's supposed to be with it?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what that part of the device is for?
It is a Bluetooth receiver that sends messages to his doctor.
So that Bluetooth receiver is at your house, and your dad and his vest is at the jail.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know when it was that your dad had to start wearing that device?
He has been on and off of it. Recently, he got put back on it. It was about roughly less than a month ago.
And what happened to cause him to have to start wearing it?
A while back, he'd had a heart attack in his past, and his heart's really weak. They have him as that just in case if anything decides to hit the fan, it'll bring him back.
Did he have COVID in March or so, April of 2022?
Yes, sir.
Now, after that, is that when he had to start wearing this device?
Yes, sir.
Do you know anything about a pacemaker operation or appointment being scheduled for your dad?
Yes, sir.
Do you know when it's to be scheduled?
I believe next week.
Okay. Now, if your dad goes to prison in this case, would you like for him to have the pacemaker installed already?
Yes.
Okay. You think it would help him to have it?
Yes.
Okay. Does your dad drive any at this stage with his physical condition?
No, sir.
And how does he get around to his places?
His workers, they travel to jobs.
So he doesn't drive himself. Do you know why he doesn't drive?
Just in case the risk if something happens to his heart.
Okay. Do you know how many medications your dad takes at this time?
He is on 7 different medications.
To your knowledge, are those 7 at the jail, or do you know?
I know they are at the jail.
You think they are?
They should be.
Okay. And has he taken more in the past, or has it always been 7 since this happened?
I believe it was less in the past, and they had to put him on different ones after his COVID.
Do you know how much, write that question, has your dad been wearing some kind of an alcohol detection device since this case happened in July of 20? Does he pay for that?
Yes, sir.
Just a second. Who is this? I have someone named Tommy in the
Yes.
waiting room. Aaron, is that one of
It's
yours?
probably Tommy Brooks. Yes, he can just wait in the waiting room.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
What was my last question?
Does he pay for that?
Okay. Has he paid for it continually?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he's been on that device ever since this case happened,
Yes, sir.
or some device?
Some sort of device, yes.
The device he's wearing on his body right now, does it need a battery charger?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has your dad always attended court with me when we had to come here to court?
Yes, sir.
Every time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Anchondo?
Mr. Almanza, you know that the jail has the availability to charge the device for your dad. You're aware of that?
I don't know.
Okay. And also they have the means to transport him to and from doctor's appointments. You're aware of that?
I didn't know that.
Okay. I want to clarify, and some of it is because I'm sorry, I'm on the computer. I don't know that I wrote everything down correctly. You were at work on January 11th. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Where is it that you said that you work at?
I work at Destination Ford at Dumas. I'm one of the salespeople there.
It's the what?
Destination Ford at Dumas, the Ford dealership here in
Destination
town.
Ford. Okay, got it. In Dumas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you got off at work at 7:30 a.m. or p.m.?
PM.
Who else lives at your house?
It is just me and my dad.
And your dad has been there for 4 or 5 months. Where did he live before he moved in with you?
He lived at the apartment that we had at East Berwick, 7th Street.
At East Hollow?
East Hollowbrook on 7th Street here in town.
Okay. And how long did you guys live there?
Seven months.
And prior to you guys living in that apartment, where did he live?
917 Shamrock Drive here in Dumas, Texas.
Okay. And that was the only residence that he had? Was with
That's the
you?
one- yes, would be that one, but the other one is a long time ago. I don't even remember.
Okay. And so he's stayed with you every day since he was released from the hospital. And I guess, was it roughly April?
Yes, yes.
And was he in the hospital for roughly a month, about March to April of last year?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. And then are you aware of the other violation that we've alleged that was in May of last year?
No.
Okay. Were you aware of the situation where I'd filed a motion to revoke his bond May of last year when he was on that previous alcohol monitor, the Scram monitor?
It just came up. He's brought it up to me, but other than that, no. That's all I know, that he had to come to court.
Okay. He didn't come to court on that, though. You weren't present in any hearing, right?
No.
Okay. And so are you aware that his attorney represented to the court that he was actually living with a girlfriend in Amarillo at the time?
It's not his girlfriend. It was his friend.
Okay, but that's where he was living?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so when I asked you if he's lived with you every single day since he's been released from the hospital, that was not the case. Is that right?
He'd come and stay with me most of the time. Majority of the times he would
That's
come.
not, that's not all of the time, though. That's not every day, right?
You're
Yes
gonna
or
have
no?
to answer the questions, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
didn't get an answer to
yeah,
that question.
he wasn't staying with you every day then, correct?
No.
All right. And then also you said that, let's see, the Hall's cough drops, are you indicating to the court that I guess the bag was less than it was when you left the house for work? You don't know how many cough drops he consumed that day, right?
Oh, no. I go to work before he does.
Okay. And then as far as the cough syrup, how much did he take that day?
I believe it was just one.
One dose?
I believe so.
Okay. And as far as the people that are driving him to work, who are those people?
It's his relative.
Just one person?
That is the one person that works for him, yes.
Okay, and who is that?
It's my uncle, his brother.
Okay, what's his name?
Johnny Almanza.
Johnny Almanza. Okay, and he's the only person that drives your dad around?
Yes, ma'am. Majority of the time, yes.
Okay, who else drives him?
Whenever
Claudio,
his girlfriend,
I'm
whenever
sorry?
his girlfriend comes in, whenever his girlfriend comes and visits from Midland, she drives him around.
Okay, and what's her name?
Claudia?
Claudia?
Yes, ma'am.
What's her last name?
Macias.
If he's gonna testify, Judge, I'd like for Mr. Almanza to be sworn in so I can ask him questions.
Mr.
Macias.
Crum, do you intend to offer your, sorry,
Judge, instruct him not to make any statements.
all right, I was gonna ask is, do you intend to have him testify?
No, ma'am, instruct him not.
In that case, Mr. Almanza, you may not testify. Right, please proceed, Ms. Anchondo.
Other Mr. Almanza, what
Oh.
was the last name of, I know, I'm getting confused too. What
Oh.
was the last name of Claudia? If you know it?
She's talking to you,
Enrique, I'm sorry, I know it's
Enrique.
confusing.
Macias?
Macias, okay? And she's out of Midland,
She works there, yes.
okay? And how often does she come up?
It really depends. It's usually every other 3 months. She'll be here for a week.
Okay, who else drives him?
Other than that, nobody else.
Okay, you don't drive him?
If he asks me to, but it's usually just to a gas station.
Okay, does he have a vehicle?
Yes.
And who uses it?
He does for work when needed.
And so is he driving then?
No, his brother drives him.
What's the vehicle?
It is a 2015 Ford F-150.
Okay, and do you know the value of it?
Market price, not too sure.
Does he own any assets within your home?
TV, his bed,
Okay, and then the businesses, you said that they're his businesses that he's going to work at?
the company, he works for farmers.
Okay, and what does he do for them?
He's a crop sprinkler repairman.
Is that a business that he has with his brother or is it his business?
It's his business.
Okay. So he does the repairs and he owns the business.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Did somebody say something? No. So as far as the people that are driving him, we've got Johnny Almanza, Claudia Macias, you, is there anybody else?
No.
Okay. And did he tell you that he's not supposed to be driving?
He doesn't feel comfortable driving.
Okay. When is the last time you saw him drive?
I can't remember at the top of my head.
Okay. Do you know your dad to use any other substances besides alcohol?
No.
Have you ever heard about him using cocaine?
No.
And he doesn't live, or I'm sorry, nobody else lives in the residence with you?
No.
Does your girlfriend ever stay the night?
Yes, every other night.
Every other night?
Every Wednesday night, she stays the night.
Did she stay the night this night?
Yes.
And do you know where you were at or what you were doing? May 5th, 6th, and 7th of last year. Do you happen to know?
I can't remember.
Do you know if he was staying with you or with his girlfriend in Amarillo at the time?
It would have been, if it's in Amarillo, it wasn't with me.
And the girlfriend in Amarillo, is that also Claudia? Or was that somebody different?
That was just his friend.
Okay, and what's her name?
Her name's Jessica.
What's her last name?
I don't know.
Okay. And would she ever drive him around?
Yes.
Okay, so can you just go ahead and name everybody that is driving him? I've got your uncle, girlfriend Claudia, friend Jessica, you, who else?
Most recently, those are the most recent people that have, but from the past, it has been old workers that has worked for him, but I don't believe they are longer employed with us.
So just other employees,
Yes.
okay? Are you also aware that, I guess through your dad, through the lawyer, that it was represented to the court that he was on oxygen?
Yes, he was on oxygen.
Okay. Is he on oxygen anymore?
When needed, he needs to, whenever he can't breathe really correctly, he does get on it.
Okay, but he doesn't have to be on it consistently.
Not consistently, but he still prefers to be on it.
But he's not on it every day.
No.
Okay, Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Crum, do you have any questions?
Yes, ma'am, just a minute. I'm gonna have Shelley mark another exhibit. And Ricky, I'm showing you a picture and I'll hold it up for the prosecution in a minute, but Aaron, this is a picture of his dad standing and I'll see in what room with oxygen bottle next to him and his life vest on. So I'm gonna ask you, is that a correct identification? Is that your dad?
Yes, that is.
Do you know when that picture was taken?
I believe it was after COVID, after he got out of the hospital from COVID, because that's whenever he was immediately thrown on the oxygen.
Okay, and there's an oxygen bottle with him,
Yes, in the picture, yes.
and is he wearing the vest?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and since that picture, whenever it was when he got out of the hospital in 22, or March or April, has he used the oxygen again since then?
Yes, he has.
Do you know how many times?
Not at the top of my head, no, sir.
Okay. Do you want me to hold this up to the screen, or what do you want me to do, Aaron?
Yeah, just so I can see which one. Yes, okay, I think you gave me a picture of that before. Okay, I can see it.
We're gonna offer defense 3.
No objection.
Defense 3 is admitted.
So, Enrique, Ms. Anchondo, the prosecutor, asked you about some dates back in May of 2022, I guess, I think is when it was. And I'm guessing those were the days when they said that this device said he was consuming alcohol. You don't remember those days, do you?
No, sir.
Now, since your dad's had this charge placed against him, have you ever seen him take a drink of alcoholic beverage?
No, sir.
You haven't been around him all the time, have you?
No, sir.
But while he's been in your presence, he hasn't done so.
No.
And you're aware that that thing he wears on his leg or either blows into is there to detect alcohol?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever counseled him? No, strike. Ricky, were you aware that I had called the jail or office head to surrender your dad the morning after he got arrested at home, or do you know that?
I did not know that.
Okay, sorry. Pass the witness.
Ms. Anchondo?
Mr. Almanza, you understand the issue isn't solely the alcohol. Obviously, the alcohol consumption is a concern. But also that your dad not be driving as well. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay, because he's charged with intoxication, assault, and manslaughter stemming from an accident involving what I'm alleging included alcohol. You understand?
Yes.
Okay. And so as far as the alcohol consumption, that's once or any substance, but that also it was presented to us that he is not driving. And so it's your testimony that you haven't seen him drink any alcohol since he's been released from the hospital, and he hasn't been driving since he's been released from the hospital.
No, he has not.
Okay. And the release date that I'm referencing is roughly April of 2022.
Yes.
Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Crum, do you have any further questions?
Ma'am, since those questions, does your dad have a valid driver's license?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. You don't know the history of it, if it got suspended, whatever, do you?
Not at the top of my head, no.
Okay, pass the witness.
No other questions,
Anchondo,
Judge.
anything further?
No, Judge.
All right. Mr. Almanza Jr., you may be excused.
Thank you.
You step it.
Mr. Crum, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, ma'am. This is Kiara Gallagher.
Ciara, please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Okay, put your hand.
Kiara, are you nervous?
Not too bad.
Okay. How long have you known Enrique Almanza?
Since October 2022.
And you've been here in the courtroom as he testified, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to call your attention to the evening we were talking about when you were there, Leo Almanza was, and Enrique Almanza was there. Do you remember that evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. About how long were you at the house before Enrique got back from work?
Inside of the house, I want to say 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay. Now, you are how old?
I'm 19 years old.
And have you been around people who have consumed alcoholic beverage?
Yes, sir.
And would you recognize it if you smelled it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the occasion, I think it's May the 11th, how many times prior to that had you seen Mr. Leo Almanza, Enrique's father?
I honestly, I can't give you an estimate.
Okay. Had you always seen him at that house or other places?
At that house, yes, sir.
Had you ever seen him consume alcoholic beverage?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen any alcoholic beverage in the house?
No, sir.
Well, have you ever seen Enrique have alcoholic beverage in the house?
In the house, I'm not too sure.
Okay. Have you ever seen Enrique consume beer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know if that was in the house where he lives or somewhere else?
I guess inside the house, yeah.
Okay. And what would it be that Enrique would drink?
I'm not too sure.
Okay.
I'm not too sure.
All right. So, have you cooked in that house before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you ever, in Is it a large house or small?
In my opinion, it's a large house.
Okay. Have you ever seen any alcoholic beverage in the cabinets where you work from, or refrigerator or anything?
No, sir.
And you've never seen Mr. Almanza consume alcohol?
No, sir.
Were you aware that he was sick that night you were there?
Yes, sir.
And you heard the testimony about the medication that was introduced in evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I found out you were there that evening, so I asked you to be here, right?
Yes, sir.
Where do you work in Amarillo?
I work at Quick Quack Car Wash in Amarillo.
And is your job like taking the money or running the machines or what?
I manage.
Okay. Did you go to Amarillo High School?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you know what it is to tell the truth under oath?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's what you're doing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you and Enrique returned back to the house, you heard his testimony that you leave at 8:30, coming back at 11?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Almanza Sr. or not?
When I was there before Enrique, I saw him, yes.
Did you see him when you got back?
No, sir.
Where was he?
He was asleep.
How do you know?
I'm sorry.
You did too?
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Anchondo?
Is it Gallagher?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you said that you got to the house probably about 15 to 20 minutes before Enrique got there, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So that puts you at the house about 7:15 that day in January?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and where was Mr. Almanza when you got to the house?
So when Enrique called me, I was sitting in my car and I actually saw his dad, Leo. I actually saw him walk outside on the porch. As soon as I hung up off the phone with Enrique, he told me to go inside. And when I walked inside, he was in the kitchen.
Okay, so first he was out on the porch and then he went into the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am. He saw my car outside.
Okay, and you were not dating Mr. Almanza in May of 2022, is that right?
No, ma'am.
Okay, did you hang out with him or anything in May of 2022?
No, ma'am.
Okay, have you ever seen Mr. Almanza consume alcohol? And when I say Mr., I'm talking about Laborio, I'm sorry. Laborio.
No, ma'am.
Consume any substances at all?
Alcoholic? No, ma'am.
Any sort of substances, cocaine, methamphetamine, prescription pill,
No,
nothing? Okay. Does anybody else live at the house besides Laborio Almanza, Enrique Almanza, and then sometimes
No,
you?
ma'am. No, ma'am.
Do you know Enrique Almanza to use any substances?
No, ma'am.
What about you? Do you consume any substances?
No, ma'am.
Do you drink alcohol?
No, ma'am.
As far as driving, have you ever drove Laborio Almanza anywhere?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever seen him drive?
No, ma'am.
You're aware that there's I assume the vehicle is at the residence. I think it's a Ford. A 2015 Ford F-150. You've seen the
Yes, ma'am.
vehicle? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever seen that vehicle leave the residence?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So are you there when Mr. Almanza is getting picked up for work? Laborio Almanza?
No,
Okay. And are you there when he's getting dropped off from work?
sometimes. I think so, yes, ma'am.
Okay, besides the names that Enrique has listed as far as who's been driving him, can you think of anybody else that you've seen driving him?
No, ma'am.
Do you ever see any of them consuming alcohol?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Crum, do you have any other questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Gallagher, you may step down. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Mr. Crum, you may call your next witness.
No witnesses, Judge. We'll rest at this point.
All right, Ms. Sanchando, do you have any witnesses you'd like to call?
I do, Judge. Tommy Brooks.
Mr. Brooks, please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You can put your hand down.
You may proceed, Ms. Sanchando.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Can you state your full name, please?
Tommy Brooks,
And how are you employed?
Moore County Emergency Management.
All right, Tommy, you've been tasked with managing the people that are out on bond with monitoring devices. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is Laborio Almanza one of those individuals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to discuss what the violations are. Let's start with the most recent. Is it true that you submitted a violation report to my office with the violation date of January 11th of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and can you explain what monitor he's on first?
He's on a SoberLink 3 device.
And is that a recent switch for everybody that's on alcohol monitors?
Yes, ma'am. As of September the 1st of 22, we did switch.
Switch is providers, and this is the monitor that they use?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And so with the violation, how do you know that a client of yours has been drinking alcohol or consuming alcohol under the SoberLink device?
They take periodic tests by blowing into a machine that also takes their picture as they're blowing, and it detects alcohol on their breath.
Okay. And was there confirmed alcohol with Mr. Almanza?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know the levels and at what time it occurred?
Yes, ma'am. The first one was at 6:58 p.m. and his level was 0.36. I'm sorry, 0.036.
Okay. And then how many times does it give you an alert? Does it just continue while there's alcohol present in the system?
Yes, ma'am. It will ask for a 15-minute confirmation test, and what that means is in 15 minutes it'll have him take a confirmation test, and then it'll keep testing after that.
Okay. And so did it continue to test?
Yes, ma'am.
So the first test was at 6:58 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then when was the next test result?
Now, the next test he took was at 7:18 p.m. and the result was 0.055.
Okay. So the results were on their way up.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that indicate that somebody just started drinking and the level of consumption is, or the level of alcohol in their system is on the increase?
Yes, ma'am. I would believe so.
Okay. And then when's the next test?
7:34 p.m. and the level is 0.054.
Okay. So then it's proceeded to go down. Is that right?
I did go down 1 point. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Indicating that he has stopped drinking.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And then when did it continue?
7:50 p.m. and it was 0.053.
All right. And then the next test?
The next test was 8:06 p.m. and it was 0.045.
And then the next?
8:22 p.m. and it was 0.041.
And then the next test?
8:38 p.m. and it was 0.039.
And then was that the last test?
Yes, ma'am. The retest cycle window had expired by that point.
And what does that mean?
It means that it's determined that it's not a like mouthwash or something to that extent, that it's the window for retesting had expired and discontinued.
Okay, and then at that point, does the system count it as a confirmed consumption?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if his son has indicated that he believes his dad took 1 dose of cough syrup, would that explain the levels that he has based on what the results are?
Your Honor.
What, Mr. Brooks, would 1 dose of cough syrup yield these results and cause a positive test in the system?
I do not believe so, but I'm not an expert in it.
Okay, and you didn't know, or it was never indicated to you by Mr. Almanza, did he call you to say he was using cough syrup?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and the level that, the number of times that he was testing, was that normal? Or how often was he testing with the SoberLink before?
The alcohol levels created more tests than he would normally have taken.
Okay, so when it does that, the client generally knows that the system is asking for additional tests.
Yes, ma'am. It'll
Okay,
send them a text message.
okay, and after that, Mr. Almanza never contacted you?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let's talk about May 5th of 2022.
Yes, ma'am.
At that period, do you have that report with you?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, at that period of time, does Mr. Almanza have a different electronic monitoring or alcohol monitor on him?
Yes, ma'am. At that point in time, he had what is called a SCRAM device. It's an alcohol monitor that detects alcohol through the sweat glands on his body.
Okay, and that was the device that the previous service provider used, that Moore County was in contract with.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so can you tell us what happened with his alcohol monitor starting May 5th of 2022?
Yes, ma'am. The alcohol monitor, alcohol was confirmed detected beginning May 5th, 2022 at 11:48 a.m. And it continued to detect alcohol until May 7th, 2022 at 7:35 p.m.
Okay, and can you kind of explain how the reports come to you and how SCRAM would confirm that it was alcohol use?
This particular device takes a reading from the client every 15 minutes. During them readings, they can see how the levels of alcohol come through the body, and then how the levels go down through the body, and they determine it to be confirmed consumption versus another product.
Okay, and so on this date, the alcohol, was it confirmed repeatedly?
It was a continuous reading of alcohol. Yes, ma'am.
And what time did it start?
11:48 a.m.
On which day? May 5th?
Yes, ma'am. May 5th.
And when did it end?
May 7th at 7:35 p.m.
Okay. Did he ever indicate why his alcohol monitor was alerting?
No, ma'am, I do not recall him.
Okay. And so at that point, we had filed the first motion to revoke his bond. Is that right?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this was after he had been released from the hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did I indicate to you what Mr. Almanza's attorney was representing to the court in Sherman County?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and one of those things is that he is consistently on oxygen, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then also that he is incapable of driving?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the oxygen, has he come to your, to download or check in with you and not had the oxygen tank with him?
Yes, ma'am, he has.
And to get into your office, do you have to go into the Sally Port or near the Sally Port at the sheriff's office and go down a set of stairs?
Yes, ma'am. There's 2 flights of stairs.
Okay. And then does he also travel back up those stairs to get back out to his vehicle?
Yes, ma'am, he does.
And have you ever seen who has driven him to these check-in times?
There was 1 or 2 times I've seen someone drive him, a female, but I don't know who she was.
Okay. And was that a Ford pickup? Or do you remember the make or model, or was it consistent?
I do not remember the make. I believe it might have been red, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. But typically, did he go to report to you on his own?
Yes, ma'am. When he came down here, he was always by himself.
All right. And the reason that you knew who was dropping him off is because there were cameras?
That particular time that I seen him, I was actually in the parking lot. when
Gotcha.
he showed up.
Okay. And that was after Mr. Crumb's representation of Mr. Almanza's status. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did I ask you to pay attention to Mr. Almanza's I guess behavior and who was coming and going with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what caused you to pay more attention to what Mr. Almanza was doing?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And then as far as if he's ever drove himself to check in with you, you don't know.
No, I do not.
And then now that he's on the sober link, does he check in with you personally as regularly or as consistently as he did before? Is that required now?
He doesn't come in as regularly. He usually comes in about once a month and pays his payment.
Okay. Because the sober link doesn't require them to check in as much anymore. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you if I can share the screen.
Hang on just a second. Okay.
Tommy, can you see that says notice of violation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This one for January 11th of 2023. Does this document reference the readout that the SoberLink provides?
Yes, ma'am.
And then this violation report from May of 2022, does this represent the readout that the SCRAM provides?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I'll offer into evidence as States Exhibit 1 and 2, the violation reports for May and January.
Any objection, Mr. Crum?
No objection, Judge.
They're admitted as States Exhibit 1 and 2. Was that correct, Ms. Sanchando?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Brandon, how do I get back out of? Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. In reference to Mr. Almanza's alcohol consumption, the SoberLink and the SCRAM just detect whether or not he's using alcohol. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It does not detect whether or not he's using any other substances,
No, ma'am.
including prescription pills,
No,
legal or not, it doesn't. Okay. All right. And were there any other violations or documentations that you made in reference to Mr. Almanza?
We do have a confirmed tamper on him as well.
Okay, and what is the date on that?
That one was on October 22 of 21.
October 22nd of 2021?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what does it have the time of the confirmed tamper?
Yes, ma'am. It was from the October 22nd of 21 at 6:47 a.m. to October 22nd, 21 to 7:24 p.m.
I'm sorry, can you say the dates again?
October 22nd of 21 to 6:47 a.m. to the same day at 7:24 p.m.
Okay, so 6 in the morning until 7 at night on that day.
Yes, ma'am.
Did he ever indicate to you why there was a confirmed tamper?
No, ma'am.
Never said that he was having trouble with the monitor, nothing like that.
Not that I recall, ma'am.
Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Crum, do you have any questions?
Yes. Mr. Brooks, when an individual goes on these, do you give them any kind of instructions as to what they should do if there's a tamper, or what they're supposed to do?
If there's a tamper,
Well, you said there was a tamper that was confirmed, and then the prosecutor asked you if he ever contacted you about that. Is he supposed to contact you? Do you call him? What happens?
we don't contact the client if we receive a violation. We submit it to the prosecutor.
Okay, so let's say a guy does tamper. You don't send him any kind of message for him to call you and explain it, do you?
No, sir.
Okay. Now going back to that time in 22, I guess it was May 5th of 2022. It was my understanding at that time that you were having several of those Scram devices you had to replace, and indeed you had to replace Mr. Almanza's because there was something wrong with them.
I don't recall if we did or didn't, but I mean, we have had malfunctions, but
And would you have any records that would show if you replaced his right at that time because of a malfunction or not?
let me look and see. I do not show that a device was replaced, but that don't mean it did not happen.
Okay. You don't keep those kind of records, right, Mr. Brooks, probably?
Not in his file, but, and it was in the Scram system that I don't have access to at this time.
But there were some problems with some of the Scram devices. Is that correct at that time?
We always had issues with devices need to go back to be recalibrated and change them out and normal maintenance.
Okay. And we never did have any kind of a hearing on that time, did we? The ones in May of 22.
I don't believe we did, but it's been a while, Mr. Crum.
Okay, I understand. Then going to this new type device that we're talking about that he's wearing right now. What's that called?
SoberLink.
Now, do you give the people when they're put on those any kind of instructions about what they can or can't use or what they're supposed to do? If it says they're in violation, do you give them any handouts or anything?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, and so there's a list of stuff they can't use or take that might affect it, correct?
No, sir, there's not a list of things they can't use or take. I mean, they're not supposed to use or take anything within 15 minutes of taking a test.
Okay. But there's no instructions about cough medicine, mouthwash, anything like that, right?
No, sir.
And you don't personally tell them when you put it on them, hey, don't do this or don't do this, do you?
We personally tell them not to take any, especially mouthwash, within 15 minutes of taking a
Okay.
test.
Do you have a handout that lists the stuff you tell them about?
Yes, sir.
And does it list any kind of cough medicine or not?
No, it don't list any products. It gives
It
them.
doesn't? Okay.
I'm sorry, Tommy, could you repeat that?
It does not list any products. It just gives them the instruction to not use any products within 15 minutes of taking the test.
Okay. And so it wouldn't say don't use cough medicine within 15 minutes. It wouldn't have said that, right?
It does not specify cough medicine, no, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. And I think the prosecutor again asked you if he ever contacted you after the 11th of January of this year. Is there something you send to him that asks him to please contact you because there was a problem or not?
No, sir. On violations, we don't contact the client.
So when the prosecutor asked you, did he call you about this thing? There wouldn't have been anything sent to him asking him to call or anything like that, would there?
No, sir.
And he wouldn't have known if this device was saying he had consumed alcohol or not, would he?
With the amount of retest that he was taking, he should have known that something was wrong.
Okay. Now, in this instance, immediately this filed. So you sent a report the next day to the prosecutor. Is that right?
Let me look at the actual violation. Yes, sir. It was the next day, I believe.
Okay. All right. Have there been any problems with this new type device as much as the Scram device?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay. Have you read, well, strike it, pass the witness.
Ms. Sanchondo?
Mr. Brooks, with the list of products that are not supposed to be used within 15 minutes, is that a list of products that you're not supposed to use within 15 minutes of the Scram or the SoberLink or both?
The SoberLink would be not putting anything in their mouth within 15 minutes.
And is that inclusive of liquids and food?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so he's given that list when he's put on the SoberLink, and then he's asked to take the test, right?
Yes, ma'am. We do a training test or two with them when we put them on.
Okay, and so in January, I guess my question is this, if he took cough syrup and then he took the SoberLink test or was asked to blow into that device, and he was within the 15-minute period, he never called you to let you know that he had taken cough syrup within 15 minutes. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
He never called you at any point to let you know that he had taken cough syrup, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Did Mr. Crum call you after this motion was filed on this January 11th date? Did he contact your office?
No, ma'am, he has not.
Okay. And so this is the first you're hearing of cough syrup?
Yes, ma'am.
And also, I guess there's going to be reference to cough drops also. Is that your first hearing of that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The May of 2022 allegation, Mr. Crum asked you that there was no hearing. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But it's your understanding that the motion was filed, and then that's when Mr. Crum appeared on Mr. Almanza's behalf in Sherman County asking that the warrant be held. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that's correct.
Okay. And then after I spoke with or heard Mr. Crum's concerns, that's when I relayed to you what he had said. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As far as the oxygen, and that he couldn't drive, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and as it turns out, he didn't need to be on oxygen all the time, correct?
I've seen him without oxygen. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then as the driving status, you don't know one way or the other.
Correct.
And then as far as and then after that date, did anybody call you to explain why there was alcohol in his system?
Which date are we referring to?
The May violations.
Not that I recall, no, ma'am.
Okay, and if something is malfunctioning, did it show confirmed alcohol consumption?
Yes, ma'am, the report did.
Okay, and so would Scram, if you set the device back, would Scram notify you that it was malfunctioning? Or how did you know?
I'm not recalling a malfunction with his device.
Okay, but in general, how did you know that a device was malfunctioning?
Generally, we didn't have a malfunction. We would have to change them out due to them needing to be recalibrated, and that's on a timer for the device. After so many days, Scram would notify us to return that device for recalibration.
Okay, so Scram would contact you to say, you need to send this device back because there was some sort of malfunction.
No, ma'am, not a malfunction. They're and I can't give you the exact number of days, but after so many days, every device is sent back in and gone through and recalibrated.
Okay, so not malfunction, but maybe maintenance.
Correct, maintenance, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And to your knowledge, Mr. Almanza's monitor was never sent back for maintenance while he was under Scram.
I'm sure at some point his monitor was. I can't give you the dates or anything like that.
Gotcha. Okay. But if there was an issue with one of his devices where the reading didn't make any sense, you would have noted that.
Yes, ma'am. Scram would not have confirmed it if the readings didn't make sense.
Okay. And so if his says in the May date, alcohol confirmed, you never received anything back from Scram saying, hey, that was actually wrong.
No, ma'am. They're the ones that actually look at the data received from the device, and then they confirm it as consumption.
Okay. And then do they let you know then?
Yes, ma'am. That's when we're notified that it was a confirmed consumption.
So the results first before ever notifying you. Uh-oh.
I'm sorry, you froze and we missed that entire line of questioning.
Can you hear me?
There you go. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
The,
I'm going to
the
stop
last-
my video because it's choppy.
the last question I have is, and then who did they let you know then? And then he says, yes, that's when I was notified there was a consumption. And I didn't get anything after that.
Okay. I don't remember what my question was, but I guess the gist of what I want to clarify is they never let you know of a violation unless they have confirmed that it was in fact a violation.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Okay. Is that same of the tampers?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And then the reason that the county switched to SoberLink was because it was cheaper, not anything to do with the validity of Scram. Is that right?
It was cheaper for the client, and there was a supply issue with the Scram and the other company we was dealing with.
Okay. Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Crum, do you have any questions?
Just one, Your Honor. Mr. Brooks, you've never told me that, okay, you don't call me if somebody I'm representing has an event on these things, do you?
No, sir.
And you haven't ever told me that if I find out about it, I'm supposed to call you, have you?
No, sir.
Okay, pass the witness.
Ms. Anchondo?
But Mr. Brooks, have you had other attorneys where their clients were having issues? Or have you had other clients that were having issues that reached out to you to let you know what was going on?
Yes, ma'am, I have had clients. I have not had attorneys I recall. But I have had clients call me and say XYZ has happened. Yes, ma'am.
Pass the witness.
Mr. Crum?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Brooks, you may be excused. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Anchondo, do you have any additional witnesses?
I do. I've got Hunter Fippen.
Yes, he's in the waiting room.
Nobody's in the waiting room?
He is in the waiting room, and
Okay, great.
what is that? And I have Delgado in the waiting room.
Okay, great.
You need me, sir?
No. Okay, Hunter, can you hear us? I'm not sure he.
There he is.
There. Mr. Fippen, would you please raise your right hand and be sworn? Hunter, can you hear us? Oh, he's connecting to audio.
If I turn the video back on, is it going to mess everything up? No.
Sir, if you could unmute. There you
Oh,
go.
Can you hear me now?
Hear us?
Yes, I
Yes.
can hear you.
Would you please raise your right hand and be sworn?
Yes.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Yes.
You can put your hand down. Thank you.
You may proceed, Ms. Anchondo.
Thank you. Can you state your full name, please?
Yes, my name is Hunter Royce Fippen.
And how are you employed?
I work as a detective for the Moore County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been there?
Coming up on 3 years,
And how long have you been in law enforcement?
about 4 years.
All right, Detective Fippen, as far as, do you know, or are you familiar with the name Laborio Almanza?
Yes, ma'am.
Last year, did I contact at least the sheriff's office or maybe you directly regarding some representations that his attorney made in court regarding his health status?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, specifically, did I tell you that his attorney indicated that he was not able to drive at all?
Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
Okay, and so because of that, did I ask you to look out for or watch Mr. Almanza to see if his vehicle was ever being driven by him or if you ever saw Mr. Almanza driving a vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did you in fact see Mr. Almanza driving?
No, ma'am, I did not observe him to be driving.
Okay, where did you see Mr. Almanza? Did you, let's back up, that the day that you watched him, do you remember what day that was?
Yes, ma'am. If I recall, that was May 17th, 2022.
Okay. And how did you know where he was going to be at?
I was given some information from DA investigator Brandon Brown as to where his location at that time could be predicted, and I was able to observe him in a vehicle and begin watching him from there.
Okay. And when you say you observed him in a vehicle, where did you see him in the vehicle?
When I observed the vehicle, I saw him to exit the vehicle, and he was the vehicle had stopped. I should clarify, at a gas station on the north side of the city of Dumas.
Mhm.
I observed him outside of the vehicle, and then when he returned to the vehicle, he entered the passenger side door.
Okay. And the day that you were monitoring him, do you remember where, like what time of day it was and where your surveillance started?
Yes, ma'am. I don't recall the specific time, but it was about midday. And the surveillance started at the intersection of East 7th Street and Main Street in Dumas, Texas.
Okay. And where all did Mr. Almanza go?
So I tracked Mr. Almanza's movements from that intersection to I believe it's going to be a Toot and Totem convenience store on the north side of the city of Dumas. I'm not certain of the actual address of that convenience store, but I tracked him to that location where I observed him to exit the vehicle and interact with some other people who were outside at the gas station, and observed him interact with them for a short few moments, and then he returned to his vehicle and got in, and then I briefly lost Mr. Almanza's vehicle in traffic and was able to pick him back up later on about the 900 block of East 7th Street.
And were you able to see who he was with?
I was able to see what I believe to be a female subject in the vehicle with him. Her identity was not known to me.
Okay. And was on this a day that he was supposed to be checking in with emergency management to have his monitor checked?
I believe that's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And so that's how my office and your office knew relatively where he was supposed to be.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you see him getting out of the vehicle, does he have oxygen on him?
No, ma'am. I did not observe him to have any oxygen on him.
Any indication that he was struggling to move around?
No, ma'am. I did not observe any indication he was struggling to move.
Okay. And then did you take pictures and a video of Mr. Almanza?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. Let's see here. Let me share my screen with you. Can you see that photo?
Yes, ma'am. I see the file, but I can't see that it's opened yet.
Do you need to scroll over, or can anybody else see what I'm showing?
No, I just see the file.
Brandon,
I don't think I'm able to scroll on my end.
it looks like I'm sharing the right thing, but I can't. Unless I'm on the wrong.
That's what it looks like. Oh, it's because it's an iPhone photo, probably.
Because it's what?
An iPhone photo. It's an IAC file instead of a JPEG.
Well, it says JPEG.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
Is it just slow?
Maybe. It shouldn't be. I mean, it's not that complicated file.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to email these, but did you take roughly I think 9 photos?
Yes, ma'am. That would be a good approximation.
Okay, and then 1 video?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but to be clear, he wasn't on oxygen any of those times?
No, ma'am. I did not observe Mr. Almanza to be on oxygen at any time.
Okay, and it appeared to be mobile.
Yes, ma'am. I observed Mr. Almanza to be able to exit his vehicle without assistance and move freely about the gas station fuel area. until he returned to his vehicle and re-entered his vehicle.
Okay. Judge, I'll pass the witness. Oh, I do want to admit, I know you can't see them, Hunter, but the images that you provided to me is, I guess, State's Exhibit 3 through 12 or 13, depending on how many there are.
Mr. Crum?
Aaron,
Yes.
Judge, I'll accept Aaron's characterization of what they are. If it's a video and still photos of what's been described, I have no objection.
Right, those exhibits are admitted as State's Exhibits 3 through 12 or 13, depending on their number.
And Aaron, those photos describe what you've just said they describe, correct?
Yes. And also Mr. Fitton, he provided them to me. I'll email them to you as well.
Oh, that's okay. I have no objection.
And I'll pass the witness.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Crum?
No, ma'am. Pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Fitton, or Officer Fitton, thank you. You may be excused.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ms. Anchondo, do you have any further witnesses?
I do. Jace Delgado.
Chief Deputy Delgado, can you please unmute? Could you please raise your right hand and be sworn? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You're muted.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Anchondo, you may proceed.
Can you state your full name, please?
Yes, my name is Sergeant Jace Delgado.
And how are you employed?
I work for the Moore County Sheriff's Office.
I'm sorry, your title is go by Sergeant Investigator?
No, Sergeant Jace Delgado with the Administration and Support Division.
Okay. And that's a recent switch from what you were doing before, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Are you now overseeing the jail?
Yes.
And are you familiar with inmate Laborio Almanza?
Yes.
Is the jail, you're aware of Mr. Almanza's medical conditions, is that right?
Yes.
And he isn't the only one that's in your custody that has medical conditions, is that fair to say?
Correct.
And so if Mr. Almanza has scheduled doctor's appointments or has to see a physician for some reason, are you able to transport him to those appointments?
Yes.
Okay. And at this point, if Mr. Almanza is scheduled for trial within the next few months, is that an accommodation that you can make to house Mr. Almanza until his trial date?
Yes, for the time being.
Okay. And you're aware that he is also has some sort of pack that he keeps with him, is that right?
Yes.
If he's supposed to be charging that, does the jail have the means to charge the device?
I believe that we can make adequate means to be able to do that. Yes.
Okay. And really, you guys would be required to provide or assist in whatever the medical situation is. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, you wouldn't deny it, especially if he needed to charge his device. You would help him get it charged.
Yes.
Okay. As far as Mr. Almanza, his bond conditions, were you privy to a conversation that I had with the sheriff's office, or did I ever relay to you what his attorney was indicating his status was May of last year?
Could you be more specific?
So last year, you're aware that I filed a motion to revoke Mr. Almanza's bond.
Yes,
And that Mr. Crum came up to court in Sherman County and indicated to the court and I that Mr. Almanza, number one, was unable to drive.
I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay, and then also he was consistently on oxygen.
Yes, I was made aware of that.
Okay, and so I had a conversation with the sheriff's office about potentially doing surveillance on Mr. Almanza. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and did you participate or do any surveillance with Mr. Almanza?
Yes.
Okay, and do you remember what date that was?
No, not specifically.
Okay. Were you and Mr. Fithen kind of doing that together?
Correct.
All right. Did you have an opportunity to see Mr. Almanza that day?
I did.
And what was he doing?
Well, I drove around and followed him around. When I intercepted his vehicle, he was driving on North Maddox and was driving southbound. He went to South Maddox and 7th Street and turned and went back to the east and went to the Eastgate Apartments, and I followed him and I parked in a parking lot that was adjacent to him. And while I was in my vehicle, I was able to observe his vehicle. He was in the vehicle by himself and his window was down and he was smoking. He stayed in his vehicle for approximately 5 to 10 minutes, was smoking. He stepped out of his vehicle and watched him urinate by his door. After urinating, he went to the garbage, threw something in the garbage, shut the door, and then went into an apartment.
Okay. And those apartments, are they called East Hollowbrook or something?
Yes, I believe it's the Eastgate Hollowbrook.
Eastgate Hollowbrook.
I believe so.
Okay. Do you know, or did you know Enrique Almanza to live there also, or does that name ring a bell?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And so you did witness him driving that day?
I did.
Does this day stick out to you because it was an unusual request from my office?
Correct.
Okay. Did you observe him driving at any point after that?
No, I believe that's the only time that I did surveillance.
Okay. When he was outside of the vehicle, did he have an oxygen tank with
No,
him?
ma'am.
When he was walking up to the apartments, did you see him enter an apartment?
Yes, ma'am, from a distance.
Did he have to go up any stairs or anything like that?
I don't believe so. I believe it was on the first floor.
Okay. Did anybody come out to assist him?
No, ma'am.
So he was able to go from his vehicle up to the apartment without assistance.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen Mr. Almanza in the sheriff's office since that day?
Yes.
And do you recall the circumstances of that?
Yes, I had made an arrest on an individual on Northeast 4th Street, and I had brought the individual to jail. And a few hours later, Mr. Almanza and I believe a female individual were here to bond him out.
Okay, and did he have his oxygen with him then?
No, ma'am.
And do you know, do you remember the vehicle that he was driving the day that you saw him
Yes,
at the
ma'am.
apartments?
Yes, ma'am. It was a red Dodge pickup.
And do you know what he drove in the day that you saw him at the sheriff's office?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And as far as, did you interact with him any all? Did he see you? Did you say anything to him the day that he came to the sheriff's office?
No, ma'am.
Do you know roughly when it was?
I believe it was sometime in either August or September, I believe.
Okay, of last year?
Yes, ma'am, 2022.
Okay, so after the day that you witnessed him driving?
No, ma'am. That was a few months after I had seen him driving.
Oh, so when you see him in the sheriff's office, that's after the incident where you see him at the apartments?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I'll pass the witness.
I have a question. Sergeant Delgado, what date did you say you saw him driving?
I believe it was sometime in June.
All right, thank you. Mr. Crum, do you have any questions?
Judge, I have a question of prosecution. Is it a bond condition he not drive?
No.
Okay, and it's just because I'd represented to you that he wasn't driving, correct?
Correct.
All right. Yeah, I'll go back and ask Mr. Delgado a question, Judge.
Yes, please proceed.
Mr. Delgado, I talked to you a day or two ago about this case, didn't I, about the conditions?
No, sir, I don't think it was you and I who spoke.
Okay, I called someone at the jail. I can't remember who it was, but when Mr. Almanza was brought in, if they're arrested at night, is it procedure that they go straight to the drunk tank?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and in the drunk tank, there is not a bed, is there?
No, sir.
So an individual that's arrested, and I think Mr. Almanza was arrested early in the evening on 2 or 3 days ago. Whenever he got arrested, he had to sleep on the drunk tank floor with his vest on, without his charger, all night long, correct?
I'm not sure that, sir. I wasn't working in the jail.
Okay, but procedure is to bring people arrested in the evening to the drunk tank, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, so if what I just represented to you, that could have happened, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, are you the jail administrator, Mr.
No,
Delgado?
sir. I am a compliance. I oversee compliance, and I am working directly with the jail administrator, overseeing the jail and helping them with compliance issues.
Okay, so I think it'd be fair to say that your office doesn't enjoy having people in the jail who need special medical care, do you? I mean, that's not something you like to do.
That's fair to say, yes, sir.
All right, because a guy who has a heart condition and wearing a vest, if something happened to him, there'd be certain procedures and investigation stuff would have to happen, right?
Yes, sir.
If someone died in your jail?
Yes, sir.
All right. So if it's been testified to here today that there's a part of that vest that is not with him, it's still remaining at home because when he was arrested, that was not picked up. Do you know who went out and arrested him?
I believe it was Sergeant Casanova and another deputy. I'm not sure who the other deputy was.
And are you aware that I had called your office and explained his situation and said I would deliver him there the next morning at 9 o'clock and I'd bring him in, and they said that's fine? Are you aware of that or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I had agreed to bring him in with all his stuff, and everybody kind of said that's cool. And I also said I'll bring him in right now, but you told me there was not a warrant yet. Is that correct?
You and I didn't speak, sir. No, I did not say that.
Okay, but you were aware I was going to bring him in the next morning.
Yes, sir. That was shared with me in passing. Correct.
Okay, so he got arrested though the night before I was going to bring him in, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now have you ever known anybody that had a heart condition?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, do you have people in your jail that have heart conditions other than Mr. Almanza?
That I'm not sure of, sir.
Okay, but it is, like you told me earlier, it's not something you relish to have to take care of a heart patient, correct?
Correct.
That's a witness.
Ms. Anchondo?
Sergeant Delgado, to your knowledge, no family member brought that missing piece for the device up to the jail, have they?
Correct.
Or to the sheriff's office?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you're not required to wait for somebody to turn themselves in when they elect to. You can go arrest somebody whenever the warrant is active, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a concern with law enforcement as far as somebody drinking and driving? Is there a community safety issue?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're familiar with the case involving Mr. Almanza?
Yes, ma'am.
Your office actually, I know you didn't specifically, but your office actually investigated or helped assist with the highway highway control the date of Mr. Almanza's offense. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ultimately, he was charged with intoxication assault. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
and then manslaughter as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And in those situations, do you also take into consideration the community safety issue when determining whether or not to continue to house somebody?
Yes, ma'am.
And at this point, you feel that the jail is equipped to continue to maintain housing for Mr. Almanza?
Yes, ma'am. And I spoke with the jail administrator who stated that as well.
Okay. It's not ideal necessarily, but you can do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Crum?
Okay. Mr. Delgado, then if Mr. Almanza needs to contact his doctor, set up an appointment, try to arrange for a pacemaker, go over and have a pacemaker put in, return back to Amarillo, and try to get this done before he might be sent to prison in this case. Your office can't do that as well as he could do it himself if he were outside and at home on bond, could you?
No, sir. We have our jail lieutenant sets those appointments when they're necessary, keeps up with them, and we arrange for them to be transported.
I understand. Now, since July 30 of 2020, Mr. Almanza hasn't been arrested for drinking and driving and hasn't been seen driving but this one occasion. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay. So he's been out on bond now for 2.5 years. And what is said he's done wrong is he's had 2 occasions, one when he was home in bed or soon thereafter when a device went off, and you're aware they want to put him back in jail until trial?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, sir.
Judge, I want to
That's weird.
object to that question. He's not qualified to answer that.
As a witness.
I sustain. Do you have any further questions, Ms. Anchondo?
No, Judge.
Right, thank you, Sergeant Delgado. You may be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything further, Ms. Anchondo?
Judge, I'll call Brandon Brown.
Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Okay, put your hand in.
Please proceed.
You state your full name, please,
Brandon Brown,
and how are you employed?
the criminal investigator for the district attorney's office.
All right, and Brandon, you've heard the testimony of the other officers, is that right?
That is correct.
Did you also, at my request, make attempts to follow Mr. Almanza to determine whether or not that he had been driving or was consistently using oxygen?
That is correct.
Okay, and what did you find?
On May 17th was the first time that I was assigned to this. I went to the residence that he was staying at in South Mississippi in San Jacinto. That morning, about 7:15, I observed Mr. Almanza leave the residence by himself. There was no other people in the vehicle. He left in the red Dodge pickup. He traveled toward Western Street. I lost him at that point. Later, observed him in the same vehicle, pulling up to the courthouse or going to emergency management. At this time, a female was driving his truck or the truck, and he got out on the passenger side. At that point is where Sergeant Hunter Fithen assisted, and we again observed him later at the Toot and Totem in North Dumas, standing there talking to other people. The female driver was still in the vehicle, but he was walking around talking to different people at the store. Later, again, he was assigned or supposed to appear at emergency management on June 7th. That morning, again, I was set up on South Mississippi. His vehicle was not there. Later, it was determined that his vehicle was at the Eastgate Apartments. This is going to be the incident in which Sergeant Delgado assisted. I too observed him to be driving the vehicle, be the only person in the vehicle. I did not see him get out and urinate, but I did see him get out of the vehicle and walk up to the apartment at one point.
And were those the only 2 incidents or the times that you conducted a sort of surveillance.
That is correct.
Okay, the address on South Mississippi, why did you know to go look at that address?
Don't recall directly. I think we'd received information that he was staying with this friend Jennifer or girlfriend Jennifer, and somehow we ended up with that address. I do not know why I knew that.
Do you recall Mr. Crum indicating that the girlfriend at that address was the one that was driving him around and she was the only one driving him around?
That is correct. That is the information I received at that time.
Okay, and were you also present when Mr. Crum came up to Sherman County after we filed the May motion to revoke his bond?
Yes, and at that time, the judge had requested that I contact the sheriff's office to hold off on the arrest warrant.
Okay, and then after that, is that when we started to try to verify the information that had been provided?
That is correct.
Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Crum, any questions?
Mr. Brown, is it true that there's not a bond condition of not driving? It was just upon what I told the prosecutor in Sherman County that he would not be driving. Is that why you folks followed up on this?
I am not exactly sure of the conditions. I do believe at one point he did have a suspended license, but I do not know what the status was at this point.
Okay. You don't know what the status was at the time you saw him driving, do you?
That is correct.
Okay. But it's not a condition of bond not to drive. It was based, I guess, upon me saying he wasn't going to drive. Is that correct?
I was just confirming on the information that I was asked to look into.
Okay. All right. No other question.
Ms. Sanchando, anything further?
No, Judge.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. You may be excused.
No other witnesses, Judge.
All right. Mr. Crum, do you have a closing statement?
Yeah, if I could, I guess I won't stand up. I'll just sit here with your permission, Your Honor.
That's fine.
I'm enjoying the witness chair, but I'm sure I wouldn't under other circumstances. Judge, just briefly here, I'll try to make it brief. Mr. Almanza made bond, I think, with Bob's bail bond, a surety bond, and then put on the scram as has been testified, and that was in end of July of 2020. And he's been out since that time with both conditions, the surety bond and the blow devices or scram devices. And he's not been in any kind of situation that endangered anybody since that time. The court's heard testimony about him being in the hospital in March or April of 21 because of the COVID, and then having this device on that he wears. And I've introduced an exhibit here that shows that with him having the oxygen. That was at a time in the past. You heard his son's testimony that he sometimes uses it, sometimes doesn't. Now, Judge, in this case, it's very possible, and Mr. Almanza is listening, that he'll do penitentiary time. And it's my belief that if he could have this device and the pacemaker implanted prior to our going to trial, he would be better able to serve either in this jail or a penitentiary jail without having to wear that vest and be charged and all this. And I'm submitting to the court that if you're on the outside, you can contact your doctors like his appointments next week. It's far easier to do that if he's on the outside rather than having the jail do it for him. You heard the testimony from Mr. Delgado that he slept on the floor in the drunk tank with that device on him. And Judge, you know, if an individual dies in the jail, it's just a bad situation for everybody, the family, law enforcement, the courts, etc. Now, I'm not saying Mr. Almanza is about to die, he's listening, but he has that device. And as to how the second part of the device didn't get there, we won't go into that. There's no evidence on that. I made arrangements to bring him in. He's not a flight risk. He hasn't gone anywhere in the 2.5 years that he's been on bond. He's been in this court every time, Your Honor, and the judge before called him to be here. He's always participated. He's been in the docket calls many times. This case was set for trial in January of 2022 and did not go to trial. It was set with 3 others. I had 3 cases set. We were ready to go as near as we could be. And I don't know why those settings were never reached. And I don't know if Your Honor was the judge at that time or not. I think Judge Inns was still in. So he's been here ready to participate any time. And this case was also set in this month, as you remember, Your Honor, and both prosecution and myself were not prepared because we hadn't had a chance to look at the medical records. Mr. Almanza was here knowing he might go to prison. He hadn't run off. He was ready to participate. He's on many medications. I don't know if they're all over there or not. And I'm telling you this, if I'm in jail or if I'm at home, I'm better able to take my meds than relying on someone at the jail to do it if someone's being brought into the jail to be booked. So it's just far more efficient to take those meds when you're doing it yourself. As I said, I called the jail to try to bring him in, and I didn't think he was a flight risk, and I was not even aware that anything had happened until I got a notice on the email. And I explained that I was an officer of the court and I would have produced him here at any time anyone needed him. Purpose of bond is to assure appearance at court and in the future. He hasn't been convicted yet, so to punish him for something that he hasn't been convicted of yet, even though we've tentatively said he may go to prison, and I'd like for him to go if he has to go, with the best chance of surviving that prison and not dying in the jail. I anticipate this case would be set fairly soon, Your Honor, whether he's in jail or whether he's not. And again, I'd like for Leo's sake to have the doctor have implanted this device, which would help him, as I've explained. I can understand Ms. Anchando's interest in this case and wanting to push it in however manner she could because of the facts surrounding what happened. So I'm not unmindful of the seriousness of the charges. But now Mr. Leo Almanza has been, as the testimony said, going to work on these irrigation devices. And I thought he was having someone driving most of the time, his brother. And so he is capable of doing some work. No one's denying that when he's trying to make a living and pay for his devices on his legs, pays attorney's fees, and pay whatever necessary things he's had to do. So he's earning some money and is capable of doing some things. We've not said that he's an invalid. But Your Honor, for the reasons outlined, and finally I want to say this, in preparation for trial, I've prepared for trial with people being in the jail, and it's a very difficult proposition because when you go over there, you can't have any privacy, you can't see them as often, you can't talk to them as often. So in preparation for this trial, it's far easier for me as an officer of the court and as Mr. Almanza's lawyer to prepare and give him the best defense if he's not incarcerated. And in closing, I'd say, Your Honor, he's not a flight risk at all, and he hasn't endangered anyone. And I'm going to yell at Leo for urinating near the trash can if that's what he did, because that's a bad thing to do. So I'll pass away. I'll
Thank you,
conclude
Mr. Crum. Ms. Anchondo, do you have a closing statement?
I do, Your Honor. The jail has already indicated that they don't mind housing Mr. Almanza. It doesn't need to be forever, but my concern isn't making things as easy on Liborio Almanza to get his appointment scheduled. The problem I have is that he did something dangerous. He caused major injuries to an individual and also caused her to lose her baby. And then now we've got these different trial settings, which Mr. Crum did ask for continuance on the one that was set for this month. And he went for a long time with an active warrant that I didn't realize was active. And that's why I asked for him to be placed back on the docket in October. He was supposed to go to trial the beginning of last year, but that's when he was in the hospital and he was ill. I do believe that Mr. Almanza is attempting to be deceptive with the court. I think it's because maybe he has a substance or alcohol problem. I think it's very telling that he's driving around in Amarillo, and then when he's checking in for his appointment, he's got somebody driving him, as Mr. Fithen and Mr. Brown indicated. But then later on, he's driving around on his own. And that's not the representation that was made to the court or myself, as far as his health status. And then now he's drinking again in January. If you look at the times that his son testified to, and also the son's girlfriend, neither one of them would have been present in the home when he was drinking the alcohol. Mr. Almanza had good reason to believe that something was going on with his monitor. And then he never called to explain the situation when he should have known. One dose of cough syrup is not going to create a blood alcohol content that high. And then both his son and son's girlfriend indicate, he's never driving. He's getting somebody else to drive him around. He can't do it. He'll be sick. He could have a heart attack. When in fact, either they've been told what to say prior to this hearing by Mr. Almanza, or they could read between the lines that was where the state was going with this. I don't know. But Mr. Almanza is showing a pattern of behavior where he doesn't really care what the conditions are. I have grave concerns about community safety. And so at this point, I'm asking for his case to be reset on the trial docket and that he remain in custody until that time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anchondo. I am going to reinstate the $20,000 bond, but as a bond condition this time in the bond, I would like that Mr. Almanza can only leave the house or can only drive. Well, let me restate that. He cannot drive himself anywhere at all, and he can only leave the house to go to and from work and to and from doctor's appointments. And you will need to have someone drive you to and from work and to and from doctor's appointments. And of course, the same bond conditions as we had before will stay in place. You must stay on the Sober Link. I don't recall the others, but those will all be in effect. And I would, Mr. Crum, like to try this case within the next 3 months.
Yes, ma'am. I understand that I've visited with Mr. Almanza and co-counsel, and we will not oppose any early setting if the court wants to. So we'll agree to that. Yes, ma'am. And regarding this bond, Judge, do I have to draw something up, or would it be effective immediately, or how do we want to do that?
Would you present an order to the court and have Ms. Anchondo review it?
What I'd like to do is, well, I don't have any way. I'll talk with Aaron straight out here. Sophie is out of the office. She had an emergency this afternoon. So can you and I together draft it with those conditions in a little while, Aaron, or not?
Yeah, I think I just need to take the previous order and add in there that he not be driving and that he's essentially under house arrest unless he's going to or from work or a doctor's appointment.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And does he
And
need to let emergency management know of his work schedule and doctor's appointments prior to?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, Ms. Anchondo, if you want to ask one of those officers to check in on his driving occasionally, that would be great.
Okay.
So as I understand it, then he'd be able to leave his home for work reasons and for going to the doctor. And I guess if someone could tell me, Aaron, does he call them how many days prior to that, or can he call them a few minutes before? How quickly?
As soon as an appointment is scheduled, if he'll let them
Okay.
know. Yep.
And will it go through your office or just call an EMS?
Usually,
Emergency
emergency management will contact me to let me know that that's what the request is. Yep.
We've done in the past. Okay, and so I'll help in just a minute, Judge, to get this order ready. And can Leo be released this evening if the jail permits it or not?
I don't think we can get it done that quickly. It's 4:30, so it will be tomorrow.
Okay, so that gives Aaron and I time to work it up tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
All right, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.